The United States and South Korea have long been close partners, bound by shared history, military ties, and robust trade. For decades, their alliance has stood as a symbol of cooperation and mutual respect, weathering the storms of global politics and regional tensions. From the Korean War to the present day, the two nations have supported each other, not just on the battlefield, but also in the boardroom and beyond. Their economies are deeply connected, with goods and services flowing across the Pacific, creating jobs and prosperity. Every year, billions of dollars in trade pass between their shores, fueling industries from technology to automobiles, agriculture to entertainment. This economic partnership has helped both countries grow stronger, providing opportunities for businesses and workers alike. But even the strongest friendships face challenges. Differences in priorities, shifting political landscapes, and economic pressures can all put strain on even the closest of allies. Sometimes, disagreements arise that test the very foundation of trust and cooperation that has been built over generations. On September 27, 2025, this partnership is being tested by a major trade dispute. Headlines around the world are focused on the standoff, as both governments prepare for high-stakes negotiations that could have far-reaching consequences. At the heart of the issue is a massive sum of money and how it should be paid. The financial stakes are enormous, with both sides concerned about fairness, transparency, and the long-term impact on their economies. President Trump and President Lee Jae-myung have sharply different views on the terms of a recent trade deal. Each leader faces pressure at home to stand firm, protect national interests, and avoid appearing weak on the international stage. This disagreement isn't just about numbers. It's about trust between two allies. The outcome will signal whether their partnership can withstand tough times or if cracks will begin to show in the alliance. Trade negotiations are common, but this dispute is unique in its scale and the way payment is being discussed. The complexity of the deal, combined with the personalities involved, has made compromise difficult to achieve. The outcome could reshape not only their economic relationship, but also the stability of the region. Allies and rivals alike are watching closely, knowing that the decisions made here could influence trade, security, and diplomacy across Asia and beyond. As the world waits for answers, the stakes could not be higher. Let's dive into the details of this high-stakes negotiation and what's truly at risk for both nations and for the future of their enduring friendship. The trouble began with a handshake in July 2025. It was a moment that seemed to promise hope and progress, a symbolic gesture that captured the attention of the world's media. Cameras flashed, headlines buzzed, and for a brief moment, it looked as if a major trade dispute was about to be resolved with a simple clasp of hands. President Trump and President Lee met in a high-stakes summit, determined to resolve the escalating tensions over a 25% U.S. tariff on South Korean goods. The tariffs had strained relations for months, threatening jobs, investments, and the broader alliance between the two countries. Both leaders faced mounting pressure at home to find a solution that would benefit their economies and restore confidence. After hours of intense discussion, they struck an informal deal, one that was meant to break the deadlock and send a message of cooperation to the world. The United States would lower its tariffs from 25% to 15%, offering much-needed relief to South Korean exporters and manufacturers. In return, South Korea pledged to invest a staggering $350 billion in American infrastructure, technology, and energy projects, a sum that would create jobs and stimulate growth across the U.S. The handshake was hailed as a win-win: tariff relief for Korea, investment for America. News outlets around the globe reported on the breakthrough, and markets responded with cautious optimism. But beneath the surface, the agreement was vague, leaving crucial details unsettled. There was no official document, no binding signatures, just a verbal understanding and a handshake. How would the $350 billion be delivered? Would it come as direct investment, loans, or joint ventures? Over what timeline would the funds be transferred, and which sectors would benefit the most? These questions were left for negotiators to figure out later, but the lack of clarity set the stage for trouble. Without specifics, both sides began to interpret the deal in their own way. What seemed like a simple solution quickly became a source of confusion and disagreement. Each team returned home with a different understanding of what had actually been promised. The handshake was supposed to be the start of a formal agreement, a foundation for lasting cooperation. Instead, it became a symbol of ambiguity. Instead, it exposed just how differently each side interpreted the deal. American officials expected immediate, large-scale investments, while Korean negotiators believed the timeline and structure were still up for discussion. The missing fine print, the details that turn a handshake into a binding contract, would soon spark a major misunderstanding as both sides realized their expectations were not aligned. And that's where the real conflict began, as the world watched a promising handshake unravel into a diplomatic and economic standoff. For months, negotiators from both the United States and South Korea worked tirelessly behind closed doors, navigating a maze of diplomatic protocols and economic interests. Each side brought their own priorities and concerns to the table, hoping to craft an agreement that would benefit both nations. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism, as seasoned diplomats and advisors exchanged ideas, drafted proposals, and tried to bridge the gap between their countries' expectations. The goal was clear: to turn a symbolic handshake into a binding treaty, one that would set the stage for a new era of cooperation and mutual investment. Every detail was scrutinized, every clause debated, as both sides inched closer to a deal that seemed within reach. But then, in a move that caught nearly everyone off guard, President Trump made a stunning announcement. He declared that he expected South Korea to provide a $350 billion investment as an upfront, one-time cash payment, an unprecedented demand in the history of such negotiations. This announcement sent shockwaves through Seoul. South Korean officials and business leaders had always envisioned a gradual, phased investment, one that would unfold over years, allowing both economies to adjust and benefit. The idea of a massive, immediate cash transfer was not only unexpected, but also deeply unsettling. Trump's demand didn't just raise the stakes, it fundamentally changed the entire nature of the deal. What had started as a discussion about long-term partnership was suddenly transformed into a high-pressure negotiation over a single, enormous payment. Instead of focusing on sustainable, long-term investment and shared growth, the conversation shifted to the logistics and feasibility of an immediate financial transfer, something South Korea had never agreed to, nor even seriously considered. For the United States, this upfront payment was seen as a way to guarantee quick, tangible benefits for American infrastructure projects and workers. It was a bold move, designed to deliver immediate results and political wins at home. But for South Korea, the request was not just financially daunting, it was politically and economically alarming. The sheer scale of the demand threatened to destabilize their own plans and raise serious questions about the future of the partnership. Suddenly, the two sides were no longer just haggling over numbers or technicalities. They found themselves at odds over the very structure and spirit of the agreement, with trust and goodwill hanging in the balance. The friendly, collaborative spirit that had characterized the talks in July quickly evaporated, replaced by confusion, frustration, and mounting tension on both sides of the table. The negotiation had reached a critical turning point, with the outcome now more uncertain than ever before. South Korea responded swiftly and decisively. National Security Advisor Sung-lac publicly rejected the idea of a $350 billion upfront payment. He clarified South Korea never agreed to a cash transfer, only to future investments. The government simply couldn't pay such a sum at once. It was financially impossible. South Korea remained committed to investing in the U.S., but not under these terms. The demand for immediate payment was a red line. Governments don't have hundreds of billions in spare cash. Their budgets are already committed to essential services. Meeting Trump's demand would harm South Korea's economy and its people. This wasn't a rejection of the U.S. partnership, just of an unworkable condition. Seoul wanted to return to the original, practical understanding of the deal. The ball was now back in Washington's court. Why is an upfront $350 billion payment impossible for South Korea? Such a move would drain nearly all of its $410 billion in foreign reserves, its economic safety net. This would leave South Korea dangerously exposed to financial shocks. The value of its currency could plummet, and investor confidence could collapse. President Lee warned that this demand could trigger a financial crisis, not just for Korea, but for the region. Even with protective measures, the risk would be enormous. No responsible leader would gamble their nation's stability for a trade deal. For Seoul, this is about economic survival, not just negotiation. Instead of walking away, South Korea clarified its offer. The $350 billion was always meant as long-term investment, not a cash handout. The plan loans, loan guarantees, and equity investments in U.S. projects over several years. This approach would create American jobs, boost industries, and build lasting economic ties. Investments would flow gradually, supporting factories, technology, and infrastructure. The money would work for both economies, not just fill a government account. South Korea argued this model fulfilled the spirit of the handshake deal. It was sustainable, responsible, and mutually beneficial. The hope, the U.S. would accept this practical path forward. Only then could the deal truly work for both sides. The talks have stalled. The U.S. insists on an upfront payment. South Korea stands firm on gradual investment. The deadlock isn't just about money, it's about control. Washington wants to direct the funds. Seoul wants its companies to invest where they see value. This uncertainty is hurting businesses on both sides. South Korean exporters fear tariffs will stay high. American firms worry about rising costs for Korean parts. With new U.S. tariffs looming, the pressure is mounting. Diplomats are searching for a compromise, but neither side is budging. The once promising deal is now stuck, waiting for a breakthrough. With talks frozen, all eyes turn to the upcoming APEC summit in October. This year, South Korea hosts, putting it in the diplomatic spotlight. Both leaders, Trump and Lee, are expected to attend, offering a chance for direct negotiation. South Korea hopes to use the summit to finalize the deal and showcase its diplomatic skill. For the U.S., it's a chance to announce a major win, or risk public failure if talks collapse. The world will be watching for a handshake or a standoff between the two presidents. The summit could make or break this critical trade agreement. This dispute is more than a fight over money. It's a test of a vital alliance. The outcome will shape both economies and their broader partnership. A fair solution must balance America's desire for tangible benefits with Korea's need for stability. The likely compromise, a clear long-term investment plan with agreed timelines and priorities. This would give the U.S. certainty and Korea flexibility. The upcoming APEC summit is the moment of truth. Can both leaders find common ground and restore trust? The world is watching, hoping for a deal that strengthens both nations and their enduring friendship. The next handshake could define the future of this crucial alliance.